the scary thing about, relationships are beautiful. I love being in relationship with all types of human beings, men and women. I just love being in relationship. And the challenge with intimate relationships is that one of two things are going to happen. You're either going to get married or you're going to break up. And they're both scary for people. Getting married or breaking up, it's like they're both a challenge. There's something you're letting go of and taking on when you do either once.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh man, it's so challenging. So when we get to the point where we eventually, if we're going to go through a breakup, how do we do it in a way where there's love and beauty and grace and not craziness and jealousy and anger and resentment? Because I've been in previous relationships in my past where, man, I'm not proud of the way things ended on both of our accounts. And I'm sure a lot of people have experienced some type of nastiness in a breakup based out of hurt, pain, resentment, anger, frustration, not feeling good enough, whatever it may be, feeling, taken advantage of. So what's the process? If you know that something is not working and you've tried to work it out for a while and you're giving your all, and they're giving your all, and you love each other, but it's not working for months and months, maybe years, how do you start the process of doing a breakup without it being painful?
Oh.
And is that possible?
It's not possible.
It's not possible.
That's not possible. That's not a realistic goal.
Pain is inevitable.
Well, we're hardwired to bond.
Yes.
We just are. Like the latest studies in neurobiology show that when the people that we're hanging with the most, we actually sync up physiologically.
Really?
Yeah. So we're actually, our brains will start to hook up. Brains are social creatures. So if you're going to part ways, there's no way for that to not be incredibly painful.
Wow.
But so conscious uncoupling is more about, okay, how are we going to suffer in an effective way?
So pain is inevitable. You're going to experience pain. It's going to be challenging.
Right.
How do you do it in a way where you can still be okay with it?
Yeah. Well, that you're going to be able
and
to
not drag it on for years or something, right?
Oh, exactly. Well, that's when people create a negative bond as opposed to a positive because they can't let go. See, that's the brain, though. The brain doesn't want to let go at any cost. The brain is hardwired. Even depression. There have been studies that shows, even puppies get depressed, when they can't find their moms. They go in the corner and they're just like really super depressed. And I heard there was one scientist who was kind of pontificating on the reason for this. I thought it really made a lot of sense, which is that it's nature's way of slowing us down so we don't move too quickly away from the object that we are attached to.
Oh, man.
So nature is really kind of errs on the side of attachment. And so we don't necessarily do that. In our value system, we might say, I can't stay with someone who isn't in the center of my mission. I'm not going to, I'm not going to dim down and live a lesser life in order to keep this relationship going. I can't do that. It would be such a betrayal of myself.
Right.
So, and we have to recognize that, in previous generations, people didn't really have that. Like, it was just, you just did that. You dimmed down, you settled, you took care of your family.
Because your family, because whatever,
Like, so this is a new emergence that's happening. And I think it's part of like our grand awakening that's happening in the world. We're all growing really super fast right now.
And if our partners aren't growing with us, it becomes a challenge.
It is a challenge. It is a challenge in terms of prioritizing how you're going to spend your time or what you're going to do with your energy or being able to share your inner world. Esther Perel's, Esther's name, but the relationship expert who talks a lot about infidelity. She's got a new book coming out, and one of her things that she's talking about is existential affairs. And like the love affair with life and the love affair with mission and
being in love, being high on life. Yeah.
Yeah, it can pull on us. Anyway, so I lost the through line right there. What was I saying?
Good question. I lost it too.
Yeah.
Going into the 5 steps. So
the
pain is inevitable, but how do we do the suffering in a loving way?
We don't want to have ineffective suffering.
Yes.
Okay, so ineffective suffering is when you take the bait of your biology and you go to
Which is
form
strong.
Very strong. super strong.
Strong.
Right. And so you go into fight or flight, and you want to lash out, that, soulmate to soul hate phenomenon. So you want to lash out, but what it will do is create a negative bond and keep you just as invested, but only this time through a toxic cycle of
reinforcing
negativity.
Yeah.
Right.
That's not healthy, because you love the person. You don't want to hate them or be mad at them constantly.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think where we want to go is, or I know where we want to go, is to be able to find a way to de-escalate the intensity of the emotions that we're feeling.
How do we do that when we are, hardwired to be jealous or angry, or it's just like reactive? How do we say, okay, I'm going to be in that Om state right now and calm and meditate and not let any of this affect me?
Well, one of the reasons it's so hard is because our relationships actually regulate our emotions. They're fear regulators.
Yes.
Our relationships.
Yes.
So when there's a rupture of attachment, that phenomenon, like the one person who's hurting you the most, that's the person you want to see the most to comfort you. So because you're hardwired to get regulated by that person. Yeah. They're the one person who can comfort you and soothe you. So the
otherwise you're the puppy in the corner, just like depressed.
Yeah, or enraged, right? Or freaking out. I mean, depression is actually a higher level of, on Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's stages of grief, you have bargaining, denial, and anger, and then you have depression.
Wow,
and so depression is like, I'm starting to come to terms with this, so it's actually a good thing in a breakup. But I think you're saying, like, how do you deal with the anger and the rage and the jealousy, all of that stuff? Yes. So one of the things that I offer people is a simple technique called affect labeling in the psychological world, which is basically the ability to put a name on each of your feelings.
Okay. So give me an example.
So an example is, first of all, there was a scientific study done where subjects were looking at a computer screen, and they were seeing, faces of horror, faces of rage, faces of hatred, and they were being monitored in all of their vitals, and they're kind of going off the charts. Their blood pressure is rising and their heart rate is going. And then they did another technique with this. They said the same pictures to a new group, but put a name: hatred, rage, despair, and the vitals did not go up in the same way. So what that shows is that when we have a name for the experience that we're having, we don't get as overwhelmed. So language serves kind of as a container.
So how would we use that in a breakup?
So I have a practice where it's very simply advise people to ask yourself, Katherine, honey, what are you feeling right now? I'm feeling terrified. I can see that you're feeling terrified. Honey, what else are you feeling? I'm feeling so humiliated. Oh, I can see that. You're so humiliated. What else are you feeling? I'm feeling really pissed. Okay, I can see that you're feeling that. What else are you feeling? I feel exhilarated, because we have all these feelings going on at once. They don't have to get on with each other, know. Yeah. So that process, and then sometimes if the feelings are overwhelming, I also give people an opportunity to do this process of Tonglen, which is a Buddhist process. I'm not Buddhist myself, but it's a beautiful practice that Pema Chodron actually made very popular. Of you breathe a certain feeling into your heart. So I feel despair. I'm going to breathe despair in. I'm not going to turn away from it. And on the out breath, I'm going to breathe out a blessing to everyone in the world who in this very moment is suffering with this very feeling, including myself. And it starts to be like you can start to hold the feeling more because you've made a bigger playing field and you see it as an impersonal experience. And then you become, a force of good. Ideally, what happens is we want to harvest the seeds of growth that are inside of each of our feelings. So, for instance, the feeling of rage, there's something underneath it, like a violation has occurred, and there's a part of us that's saying, I should be treated better. I deserve respect. I deserve that my feelings should matter to the people that love me and that I've opened my life up to, and I deserve to have better. So that can actually become a stand then that you take. Because we're going to move into self-responsibility. How is I giving my power away? How is it okay? How is I, treating people to disrespect me? All of that kind of thing.
Sure.
Right. So you want to harvest the seeds of growth that
Gotcha.
are, because this is the thing. There's also a teacher, Ken McLeod, talks about karma, and he breaks karma down basically to its original Sanskrit meaning, which means the ability to plant seeds for the future. It's action seed results.
Interesting.
So every action we take, every choice that we make in that moment when we're in a breakup is planting a seed for the future.
Wow.
And a lot of people who end up in that negative spiral where you're, years later fighting and back in court and stuff is because at the very beginning, people planted bad seeds of hatred and rage. And that's what that grows in your backyard. And you're eating those bitter fruits for years to come. Right. So it becomes actually self-destructive. It's meant to hurt somebody else. In the way that you feel hurt, but it becomes self-destructive. And so, one of the principles in step 1 of conscious uncoupling is, do no harm and plant good seeds. Do
no harm to yourself or other people?
Other people even. Do no harm to anyone. Even though you want to lash out.
You want to get mad or upset.
Run around the track.
Work
out, do a great work of art,
or
just like throw paint on a canvas,
so
write in your journal.
Don't react to your partner or your.
Don't send the email, right?
Or the text message like, I hate
or the text, right?
Don't do it. What does that do when you do those things?
Well, it starts to plant those bad seeds. I mean, it's very easy to cross the line and say things that you can never ever take back. And that kind of color life moving forward. And I think what happens to us is that we go down a path of living a lesser life in the aftermath of a really bad breakup, an ugly breakup. And so
it's longer to bounce back too.
Much longer to bounce back. And also this goes into step 2 of the process. As long as you're pointing the finger at someone else, even if they were misbehaved and did terrible, terrible things, you're not using the opportunity to, look at yourself and how you co-created the dynamic that allowed for that to happen.
You're responsible for everything too. So.
And the only way you're ever going to trust yourself to love and be loved again is to take responsibility for your part of it, because then you can make an amends to yourself and make a decision to never behave that way again.
Right. And the first step you have here is called find emotional freedom. Is that part of this process we talked about?
Well, find emotional freedom is the first one with the affect labeling, and so that you have your feelings, they don't have you.
They don't have control over you.
They don't have control over you, exactly.
Gotcha. And the second one is reclaim your power in your life.
Yes.
So getting back your own power.
Which always means, the path to power. What? Path to power is responsibility. Of course.
Yeah,
right?
Otherwise you're a victim.
Right. You've got to get out of victim consciousness. Yeah. And it's so easy to be in victim consciousness. And the thing about a breakup is when you're traumatized, what happens to us is, trauma is basically that whatever is happening is more than you can wrap yourself around. So you can't actually hold it. It's so, it's overwhelming. Mm-hmm. And so it starts to overwhelm us in a way that has us start to tell the story over and over and over again. And that's where we're burning our friends out because we just want to talk about what she did and what he did,
Right.
It was so terrible.
They're like, get over this already.
So it's normal to need to tell the story and to be a bit obsessive about the story. But the way that we're telling the story is really critical because you could be telling the story from a victimized perspective over and over again, which is kind of solidifying your that point of view.
Right.
And then kind of making it destined for you to then move into living a lesser life of being more guarded.
Saying I was right about my past and how this is, always going to show up this way. And
yeah. I mean, I liken a broken heart to a broken leg where, we understand that when you break your leg, it's never going to be fun. But we know you go to the doctor, you get it set properly, and you tend to the break properly.
It takes time to heal,
and then eventually it takes time.
You don't run on it right away,
right? And
it takes 6 months, a year,
right.
till you're fully recovered.
Yes, but you do whatever you have to do to make sure that you're not going to run with a limp.
Yes.
For the rest of your life,
yes.
That you're not going to be in agony every time it rains, and that's kind of the heart's equivalent of if you don't, take the proper steps to set your heart in the right direction. So, telling the story over and over again from a victimized perspective is like not setting the brake properly.
Neglect, when people just basically take each other for granted. Their business for sure. People have this idea that they put it all in when they were dating, and then once they seal the knot, it's like as if they tied the knot, it's like now they don't have to do squat anymore.